Good evening, I'm Gabriel Porras. Thank you for joining us this evening on our 7th election night result update here from SCW News and Gabriel Porras Reports. We are, of course, following all of the local election results from San Joaquin County and the city of Stockton. We have been waiting on the Registrar of Voters Office to get us some new results, some substantial results, and unfortunately I can report that right now we have still not seen those reports that we have been awaiting. I'll put this on screen right now. The Registrar of Voters Office has just released this at 2 a.m. As you can see, actually I should say at 2 a.m. This was their 2 a.m. release. It was about a minute late, although as you can see, 36.7% of precincts still reporting. So that's, or 30, I should say not precincts, 0 precincts reporting, 36.1% of voter turnout reporting so far. We know that that voter turnout is at least over 45% based on data that we have from the Secretary of State's office, so it is unclear at this point where those other ballots are and if they'll be included in these counts this evening that they have been giving us. Nonetheless, though, we will go through the results here. 36.7% voter turnout so far from the Registrar of Voters Office in San Joaquin County. Moving down to Congressional District 9. Jerry McNerney is still in the lead. Congressional District 10, Josh Harder also in the lead there. Senate District 5, Susan Eggman is still in the lead, as we've seen all evening. For Assembly District 9, Jim Cooper also in the lead on that. Assembly District 12, Heath Flora in the lead on that, 54.76%. In District 13, Kathy Miller is leading as well with 53.54% of the votes, and Carlos Villapudua in second place with 46.46% of the votes there. For County Board of Education member Trustee Area 3, Douglas Vigil is continuing his strong lead that he's had all night, as you can see there with 64.08% of the votes in that. For Trustee Area 2 for Delta College, Elizabeth Blanchard is still in the lead. For Trustee Area 5, that goes to Kathy Garcia at this point, who is pretty close, though, to Stefan Castellanos. As you can see, Stefan has 38.11% of the votes, Kathy Garcia 39.95%, so definitely a race to watch there. For Trustee Area 6, Teresa Brown still in the lead, as you can see there. SUSD Board Trustee Area number 1, as you can see, incumbent Cecilia Mendez, still a pretty strong lead in that race. The only person who is in second to her there, as you can see, is Viola Shackelford with 22.95% of the votes going to her. If you go now to SUSD Area 3, you can see Valentino Silva still continuing his lead that he's had all night with 35.39% of the votes so far. Move that down a little bit. Alicia Rico is in second place with 30.77% of the votes as well at this hour. For Trustee Area 4, you can see Ray Zulueta Jr. in the lead with 38.77% of the votes, and Ling Lentau not too far behind, only a couple hundred votes behind on that. And again, at this hour, they're still only reporting 36% of precincts, or I should say, of voter turnout. For Lincoln Unified School Board Trustee Area 2, Ashley Jones still in her lead at 80.05%. We have not seen that really change all evening, so depending on where our next results land, it could put her in the position to have that chair, but a very commanding lead nonetheless on her end. For Trustee Area 4 for LUSD, so far, Sandra Chan is in the lead at 58.50%. Deanne Moore Antonini is in second place with 41.38%. For San Joaquin County Supervisor District 5, Alicia Ransom still in the lead with 53.81% of the votes there, 46.15% going to 46.19, I should say, percent going to her opponent Robert Rickman, the mayor of Tracy. Now, in the hotly contested Stockton mayoral race, you can see Kevin Lincoln still leading his opponent, incumbent Mayor Michael Tubbs, by a few hundred votes there. As you can see, almost 1,000 votes now is the difference between the two. With Kevin Lincoln is in at 50.93% of the votes. He has 23,736 votes. Michael Tubbs has 49.07% of the votes in that race for mayor, with 22,872 votes so far. So they're really only separated by a pretty small margin, by 864 votes, and that could change as we go later into the evening and see the results. But again, pretty neck-to-neck in that race, although with Kevin Lincoln with the lead there by 864 votes. Moving on to City Council District number 6, Kimberly Wormsley still in the lead with that, keeping her commanding lead as well at 70.04% of the votes. Just over a couple thousand away from her opponent, Gloria Allen there, as you can see, with 29.96% of the votes. And excuse me, math is not my specialty, as many of you can notice. For Measure X, voters in San Joaquin County are leaning yes on that, with 66.58% of the votes going to yes on Measure X. I'm going to go back up to somewhere where we skipped earlier. The presidential ticket. San Joaquin County still leaning Democrat. Still voting Joseph Biden and Kamala Harris, Donald Trump and Michael Pence in second place in San Joaquin County, although we already know that the Electoral College votes for the state of California already have gone to Joe Biden, given his lead in this state. Although, again, on these other local elections, some of the more hotly contested ones, for example, Stockton mayor, as we go down, again, very close, only about 800 ballots, 800 votes away in this race, but Kevin Lincoln having the lead at this hour, 50.93% of the votes, with his opponent, Michael Tubbs, at 49.07% of the votes. Michael Tubbs, of course, being the incumbent in that race. And we are still awaiting more results from the Registrar of Voters office. We were initially expecting an update at 8:30 p.m. That was going to include the vote-by-mail ballots, and then the update at 9 o'clock was supposed to include their results from people who voted before Election Day but in person, and then after that we were expected to see Election Day voting hour by hour being added hour by hour to those totals, although we have seen, since we've been on the air for the past few hours, very few updates. We have seen very minimal updates, only a few hundred votes being added since 8:30, and that is still the case. And I can't tell you that, according to Secretary of State data from the Secretary of State's office, San Joaquin County is one of only 3 counties in California now that is still not reported any results from any of the precincts in person voting. This runs in opposition to a statement that the Registrar of Voters office put out. The Registrar of Voters office put out a statement around 11:30 p.m. this evening, and it read saying that results had already been released for vote-by-mail ballots. I'm pulling up the press release right here. The press release at 11:30 said, quote, "At 8:30 p.m., San Joaquin County posted the first results from vote-by-mail ballots. In-person ballots cast prior to Election Day were reported at 9 p.m. Election Day ballots will be updated hourly throughout election night until all ballots voted in person on Election Day from the 34 voter service centers have been tabulated," end quote. So they were saying that so far we have already have results in for vote-by-mail ballots and in-person ballots cast prior to Election Day. Now, it is also worth mentioning that earlier on this dashboard that we have online that shows the results for many of our local races, they had an option where you can see how many precincts we're reporting in San Joaquin County. Unfortunately, though, that option has been taken off, so we no longer know how many precincts are reporting. Although, according to the Secretary of State of California, 0 precincts have been reporting so far in Stockton, or in San Joaquin County, I should say, that is as of at least a half an hour ago. Also of note, as we have mentioned on social media and throughout our coverage this evening, 45% of the ballots had already been received by the Registrar of Voters office. This is from the Secretary of State. They say that 166,500 ballots were received and accepted by the San Joaquin County Registrar of Voters office as of yesterday. So far, and the results, we have only seen 36.7% of voter turnout. So definitely, and only 134,111 ballots being counted. So still tens of thousands of ballots away from being able to count our vote-by-mail ballots that were already accepted and received by the Registrar of Voters office. We have reached out to them for some more clarification and information regarding the results releasing and the schedule, and we will pass it along to you as soon as we get that. We're still awaiting that, as I mentioned. This is our last update for this evening, however. It is now 2:10 a.m., so it has been a very big evening, a very important night, of course, on the national and the local levels. And coming up tomorrow afternoon around 12 o'clock, we will have an update with hopefully more results and hopefully what could be closer to final results in many of these local elections, which I know a lot of people are very closely watching. For now, though, that's all for our coverage of Decision Night 2020 here in Stockton. Thank you very much for joining me, and I'll see you back here tomorrow with more results updates around noon. Thanks for watching.